Next up is action item B, update on Community Wellness Center project. Mr. Gager.
All right, thank you, Chair Newts. The next item before you folks is an update to the Community Wellness Center project. As you may recall, we last met to discuss this on March 7th when we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Four Ranges Community Recreation Foundation to work together on the development of a replacement for our aging swimming and indoor recreation facilities. And in that presentation, I outlined really four aspects of the project that we would be working on. The first was really the facility use, what we call programming. The second was location. Third, capital funding, and fourth, the operating arrangements. And we are now about 105 or so days out from that March 7th meeting. And so providing you folks an update in advance of the November election and some of the dates that we discussed earlier this evening, specifically the August 14th deadline to put things to voters, but then also looking forward to next meeting. So really kind of hope to bring you folks up to date on some community feedback that we received and update those four project elements and then talk a little bit more about the approval process that we've already touched on a bit tonight. So starting out, we did a survey in May of this year, and I'm happy to go over some of the results there. We got 564 responses to the survey. And one of the first questions we asked, and I'm not presenting all of the results of the survey, these are just some of the more interesting or pertinent ones. The 2019 community assessment identified a pool, an indoor pool, a gymnasium, and a walking track as the three most desired amenities for a new wellness center. And when we talked to the 564 respondents, 77% of them agreed with that. And so, the goal of that question really was to ensure that we are still pursuing the correct project and meeting the needs of the community. And certainly, I think that is the case if we're still considering a facility with a pool, a gymnasium, and a walking track. We mentioned a little bit earlier that the district is likely to be larger than the city of Livingston and to actually match up with the boundaries of the Livingston High School District, Park High District. And so when we talked with those survey respondents, about 61% of them lived in that district. And so that, ought to provide a little bit of confidence in some of the data that we'll see here. Interestingly, what we learned, I think, is that as much as we love the pool and the Civic Center, not many of us use it. In fact, only 10% of the respondents had used the facility within the last week. And if we broaden that out, only 25% really had used it in the last month. If we look at the people who used it within the week in the last month. And so, it is an asset that some of us use, but actually, over half of us probably have not really used it very much within the last year. And as far as the respondents to the survey. But the good news is, when we talk about that building that has an indoor pool, a gymnasium, and a walking track, we do see quite a bit of demand. And in fact, 80% of respondents said they would use it once a week or more, up to several times per month. And so there certainly is, I would say, an unmet need for certain recreation facilities within the city of Livingston. So, when it comes down to it, though, it's important to know what the voters think, and 86% of our respondents in this survey identified themselves as definitely going to vote, and another almost 10% said they were very likely to vote, which is encouraging when we consider the next question, which really got down to it, was whether or not people would vote in favor of or oppose a ballot initiative to create a special district to fund the operations of the wellness center. Nearly 70% of survey respondents voted in favor, or said they would vote in favor. And we specifically polled this question at a level of $100 per year in tax impact for a house with a state appraised market value of 300,000. And for many of us out there in the city of Livingston, our home actually will be appraised a bit lower than that at a market value. So that is certainly an encouraging sign, and that $100 per year at that 300,000 of market value, that does tie fairly closely with our initial expectations of what the operating budget of a facility with a pool, gym, and walking track may be. So very, very encouraging, a little bit of feedback that we received in the last few months here. Now, just kind of walking through those 4 project elements, again, programming, as I just kind of went over, we heard community feedback that the pool, gym, and walking track were really the 3 main recreational amenities. We also heard, as we have from the beginning, that community meeting rooms and multi-purpose rooms are important to the project, and so we do expect those will make it into the final building, as will other sport uses. And just to be clear, we're talking about pickleball here, but other sports as well. Want to rest assured those will be in there actually. And so we are in the coming month. We have had some programming meetings that have included myself, some members of staff, members of the 4 ranges on board. The chair has joined in on a few of those, and we through that process, there are still some questions related to what specific aquatic features really to include, and then also different child options, a child watch that would be available more to users of the facility versus a child care that is more of kind of an 8 or a longer hour experience that might not be tied to the use of the facility. 2 distinct uses there, 2 distinct services there. And so we we'll put out another survey here that deals with many of these 4 aspects, and those are probably 2 of the programming ones that will warrant a little further study. And so the to be clear, if you wouldn't mind going up, like I said, we'll put out an additional survey here in the coming days, and run that out until the next meeting, July 18th, so we can get some clarity on that. And then the final programming of the building will occur when we get to site selection, because buildings and their design are somewhat dependent upon the site that they go on, and so we will carry that conversation onwards. So with regard to the project location, in the last, like I said, 100 or so days, the team from 4 ranges, myself and other city staff have really gone out and tried to compile a list of what we thought were all feasible project sites within the city of Livingston. We identified 13 possible project locations, and several of those were owned by the city. Several were owned by other public agencies, and then a few of them were on private land. Those 13 possible locations were evaluated really at a very high level on kind of accessibility, and accessibility relates to not just drivability, but pedestrian bikeability and also public transit access. Also evaluated them based on ownership and really how feasible it was for the city to acquire ownership of parcels that we don't currently own. And because certainly while a parcel may look attractive, its ownership situation may preclude it from really being a viable site of the city, right? And then similarly, we evaluated our those 13 possible locations on size, recognizing that this is going to be a bit of a larger facility, one of the larger buildings in town. And so it's not appropriate for every parcel in town. And then fourthly, one of our initial criteria was the availability of city utilities on site, recognizing that utility connections for a large building are pretty key and can be fairly costly to put them in if they don't exist. And so, starting with those 13 locations, we worked down to 4 finalist project locations, which did not have any fatal flaws from those initial 4 screening criteria. And those 4 finalist locations are the current Civic Center site down in Miles Park, the M Street Park out at North M and Bennett Street, the north side, the city's north side park where the soccer fields are. We've got some undeveloped land outside of the soccer area, and then also fourthly, the Washington School site. Had some conversations with the school district over the last few months related to that location, and all of these sites, as I note here, have been tested with the architect team to ensure that they could hold a 45,000 square foot building, along with the estimated parking requirements for that size of a building. That is not to say that is the size of building that we will end up with, but that is, the approximate size of the initial concept. And so we kind of set that as a frame. So now going in a little bit of detail on each of the 4 sites. The current Civic Center site, if the Miles Park band shell in that area is included, is 4.75 acres. If we look really at just the area of the building and the current parking area behind it, it's actually a lot closer to a 3-acre parcel. It is entirely owned by the city. Utility, water, sewer capacity is present. It is, and so, kind of working through the screening criteria, from an accessibility standpoint, it is served by Windrider currently, and because much of the initial conversation, with this project has centered around, kind of proximity to schools. It's worth noting that this one is relatively close to Park High. And again, we'll talk a little bit more later about the new market tax credits, but worth noting that this site is new market tax credit eligible. The next site that we considered was the M Street Park location. There is a city-owned parcel that adjoins with a private parcel. The conversations with the private owner have been very productive, and so the site's included on that basis. Together, the 3.8 acres would be, what the largest site really in these 4. And city utility capacity is present. The water reclamation facility is just down at the east end of Bennett Street here, very close by. The facility is served by Windrider, 1.6 miles to Park High, and also is new market tax credit eligible. The third site is the vacant land on the north side soccer park. The vacant area is a little over 2 acres, is entirely owned by the city. Utilities have capacity in that area, and Windrider services nearby, and we're about 2 miles from Park High at this location. And then the final of the 4th sites is the Washington School site. It is 2.25 acres, owned by the school district, though they have, in public meeting, offered this to the project. Their only request is fair market value in return, which certainly seems appropriate. City utilities are present here. And it is located on Front Street. The Wind Rider goes outside. It's about 1.1 miles from Park High. So one of the at 2¼ acres. This is also one of the larger parcels. And the district has said that they will not be using it for school purposes. This location for school purposes after this year, and so. From an administrative standpoint, they feel comfortable including this in the project. So as we move forward here towards the July 18th meeting, we will engage the community in evaluation of these 4 sites. And so as part of that evaluation, we've done some work both with the Park County GIS office as well as the MSU, Montana State University Geography Department. And so this slide and the next one really are meant to kind of inform the decision-making process a little bit. And all of this material will be on the website and in some physical locations for folks to interact with. But basically this graphic here is one way of evaluating project location, and that is really to consider, where do the families in Livingston live, and so in this chart, and this is based off 2020 census data, and this looks at percentage of households. So darker green is a larger percentage of households, and when we say households, that's people that register children living in the household, right? And so, and then moving up to the red is fewer families with children living in the households. And so, while 3 of the sites are red, that really is because they fall into a public block, and so there are no families in that block. So, best to look at kind of the area surrounding the 4 blue outlined areas, and we see that in the kind of upper left or left center, the North Side Soccer Park and the Front Street location are surrounded by darker green colors, which indicates that there are more families with children around those locations. Similarly, the Bennett M Street location, kind of in the top right there near the cursor, while the site itself is red, it ought to be because no families live in the park, and the railroad property adjacent also is red. But we see to the north, moving up towards that Green Acres, and just kind of north central, we see that we're probably in that 40 to 60 to 70% area there based off the colors. So certainly there are some kids in that neighborhood, and the Civic Center site, again, surrounded by red because no families live in the Miles Park or the school property, but we do see some orange just kind of north of that in the Yellowstone Geyser area up towards the CBD. But it is in that probably 10 to 40% families with children kind of in that immediately adjacent area. So one way to consider the locations. Another way to evaluate the locations really is kind of based on median household income, and just recognizing that people and families of certain household incomes have different opportunities than others. We see looking the 2 in the top left, the North Side Park and the Front Street location might be in slightly more affluent areas than the M Street Park or the Civic Center location, which are slightly darker green, and darker green in this area is less median income, and certainly, as with the prior map, because nobody lives in the high school, or the school district area, or the railroad area by M Street Bennett, those areas are dark green and a very low median income. But when we look around those areas, we see that they are you know, more green than they are red, signifying that they are, you know, somewhat lower income areas. And this really is what we would expect when we consider the new market tax credit district. And that new market tax credit district really is meant to encourage economic activity in lower income areas. So again, a few ways to look at the different locations. And we will have this information again, not just on the website, but we will have some physical boards that are up not only at City Hall, but some other locations throughout town. Updating the capital funding component of this. Capital funding is largely being managed by the Four Ranges Foundation. And you know, they're happy to report that they've got approximately 18 million that's secured, with another 2 million of gifts that are being considered. And then there's also the possible 4 million in new market tax credit funding that is being pursued. We had a conversation with those folks last week, and some details on that are below. But you know, as of last week, our conversation with Four Ranges was that they are still targeting approximately 25 million in private donations to support the center, which is really fantastic work. I referenced some other cities' recreation projects earlier this evening. You know, in a survey of all the folks that are pursuing these projects, we really are the only privately funded recreation center initiative in the state at this point. So I certainly thank the foundation for their work there. And I'll note that 25 million in private funds. If we look at a building cost estimated at $700 a square foot, which, you know, when we talk to the architects and some others, that seems like a reasonable estimate for both hard and soft costs of the project. 700 a square foot, $25 million, that works out to approximately a 35,000 square foot facility that will be enabled by that budget. So you know, just a kind of little frame of reference there. And I mentioned we had a enlightening call with the new market tax credit folks last week, and it remains a possible funding source for the project. And like I said, it's a federal program that's designed to attract private capital into low income communities, and one of the two census districts that's home to 2 of the 4 finalist locations qualifies for this. However, we do understand that based off of that most recent census data, that the eligible district is likely to actually lose its eligibility later this year. However, projects, you know, are still eligible to capitalize on that new market tax credit program for up to 12 months after the census tract loses its eligibility. And so at this point, it does seem like it is still a viable funding source for 2 of the 4 project locations. So that is the update on capital funding. And as far as the operations, we do continue to review, you know, the operating budgets. Some of that will come in to greater focus as we work through the programming conversation, which is a bit tied to the site selection conversation. But you know, several of us on the team, including Maggie, Paige, and myself, have reviewed the budget and had some tweaks to the initial budget. We do remain fairly confident that the project can be funded at that level that we talked about earlier. And we are at this point strongly considering using the Park High District boundaries as the boundaries for the special district. And that really is for this reason that you see here. It has significantly higher taxable value than just the city, which provides the opportunity really to bring the operating cost of this facility per household down, and recognizing that many of our users will likely be you know, students of the high school. It seemed like an appropriate boundary to use. And so looking forward to some project approvals. You know, our next regularly scheduled meeting, my hope is that we can kind of continue the site location conversation and come up with a preferred location. As I said, we'll have some more material available, and we do have the ability to hold a special meeting if you folks would like to discuss this in greater depth. And then from there, by August 14, the Park County Commission will be asked to approve a ballot item, and then on December 7th, district voters would be faced with that proposition through a referendum, and we would learn what the fate of the project is. So that is the update of where the project stands. Approximately 2 months or so before we need to finalize this thing for the voters. So I'll stand for any questions you may have.
I would like to pause since it's almost 8:30, because it's been another hour and a half for us, and give us a break before we go into questions, if that works for the commission. Can I get a motion for like a 10-minute
Yep, and I do we need to do a motion to extend.
If
at
we-
the same
I
time?
can do
Yeah.
the whole thing. Okay, so
Carrie.
I will make a motion that we take a 10-minute break, and I also am making as part of that motion, I make a motion to extend the meeting.
Second,
So we have a motion by Kale and a second by Lyons this time. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, so we're 5-0. Break and extend.
Okay.
Thank you for remembering that. Thank you
Yep.
for remembering that. Wasabi. Yeah. All right, so Mr. Gager, where did we leave off? What would you like next?
Well, that really concluded my update to you folks on the 4 project elements or aspects, and really happy to stand for any questions or clarifications you may have, or happy to provide any other detail on the process or content.
I am happy to start with process questions. Does that work for the commission?
Sure.
Okay. I have a little question before a process question. Do you know how many square feet the Civic Center is by any chance?
The actual building itself.
Mm-hmm. Ish.
Yeah, that's a very excellent question, and I don't believe I know off the top of my head.
Maybe we can come back to it.
Yes, we absolutely can while we do some research here.
I never thought to ask, but it seems like it could be a good comparison as people are thinking about size of buildings, which is why I asked, because what else is a building of that size in town? I'm not sure. A building that everybody would have access to at least.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the schools are that size, but not everyone has access to a school. Okay, so I know that there's a lot of people that want to give feedback on specific aspects of location because they've already started reaching out to me. And in my experience on the commission, some of these, like I'm comparing it to some of the bigger lifts we've done as a commission. And I know that when comments and emails come into part of the commission or staff or whomever, sometimes it can be difficult to keep track of all the comments. And I certainly don't want to lose any public comment for this project because we're moving at a swift pace and everybody's comment matters. So can you give us some insight into the best way for the public to submit comments so we can ensure that people's comments are being considered by staff and the commission before we move towards that July meeting?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I would offer that the best method would be to use the website. We do have a submit a comment function on the website, and doing so ensures that it can be seen not only by the commission but also by staff. Whereas emails sent directly to a commissioner or directly to a staff member may sit in that person's inbox if they don't proactively forward it on. But submitting a comment through the website ensures that we all get.
Can I ask 2 things of you? then?
Absolutely.
Can we see that on the screen now for people that watch the video and for people in the room? And can we make sure that we're sharing that in whatever way you decide to share information, if it's through your newsletter or I don't know how you're going to share information, however you decide to do it. Can you make sure that that is included?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so how did we get here? How did we get to the contact page? I'm sorry. I was looking over instead of looking at the screen. Thank you for starting over. Okay, so this is just livingstonmontana.org, and then you click the contact us.
Mhm.
And then this will go to, who does this email go to?
This comes to the city manager's office internally, and then we will typically disseminate them out from there. But it comes to Dave and I.
So the commissioners probably don't want 100 separate emails, so you'll like consolidate them into, because then we're likely to miss things.
Absolutely.
So you'll, we want 100 emails,
Mhm.
we just want to make sure we don't miss anything, is
Exactly.
what I'm trying to say. So you'll consolidate them into something that's, cohesive, so we don't lose them, and then submit them to us.
Absolutely.
Are you able to like phase it out if we're getting a lot of comments, so we don't have to read like 500 comments on the day before the meeting, but is there a way to?
Certainly, we can
Okay.
distribute them.
That's the come out.
I'm just thinking a process, when we worked on the growth policy, there were so many comments and it was helpful that it was sort of phased, but that was a different timeline than this, so. I just want to make sure we're doing it in a way that's sustainable for volunteer elected officials.
Mhm.
Thanks, that's my process question. Commissioners, do you have other things you want to ask?
I do, sort of following what you just asked, so you're asking, how can folks submit a comment? Mr. Gager, you talked about kind of some like public outreach where people could learn more about this or potentially see these locations as you showed them to us. You mentioned that potentially you could do something at City Hall, but you thought maybe there might be some other locations.
Yeah, so we're working on several in-person interaction opportunities. So we will have a page on our website that has all of the materials that you've seen here tonight, in addition to some others. And then those materials we will print in hard form, kind of large poster size. We will absolutely have one at City Hall, a set down at the Civic Center. And then we're working with some other community partners, very likely in this building, and possibly some others where we would have those boards. And then with those boards, they will have an opportunity for folks to take a survey and provide some feedback on the few programming questions that we identified earlier related to the aquatic feature and some others, and then also on location as well.
Thank you.
Process wise, when were we gonna open it up to public comment?
Yeah, after we get our initial questions, we can open it up. Does that sound good?
Yep, that's my initial question.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to ask right now, or are you good?
Mel, any questions right now?
What do you want to do?
Do you have a
Do you have any
question?
questions about what Mr. Gager, okay, Commissioner Schwartz, do you have any questions right now? Okay, all right, so now we'll go to public feedback just on, so this isn't, there's gonna be time to give feedback on the actual location and the details. So I would make sure that your comments, so they're not lost, go through that process that Mr. Gager outlined, because then we can make sure that they're considered before the vote. I mean, you can always comment now on anything, but also I want to make sure that people are including their comments, so they come to us in that packet before the July 18th meeting. So let's start with people in the room. Are there folks in the room that want to comment on this update? And if you could just start with your name and address, that would be great. Thank you.
Joe Phelps, 3930 US 89 South. So Jeannie Tatum, my fiance, and I have something we're very passionate about. And starting with the need, imagine it's 4:30, it's December, it's dark, and school's out, and a certain number of students can go home. They don't really want to go home. It's not a good environment. If they go home, they're in their bedroom. If they're in their bedroom, they're on cyberspace. And then there are coaches that would like to have a place where, driving into a net, batting cage, running drills for soccer. So what we're talking about is a field house. So when the idea came up, I went to America's premier steel building just to see what the heck would something like this cost. And so at 100 by 200 foot, which is 20,000 square feet, the building itself is only 600,000. But then you have to add HVAC, foundation, local contractor and so forth. And just big round numbers, it looks like 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars to have a facility where there's, and this is located next to the school, maybe out by the softball field. There's some space out there in that area. So the land is paid for, and it's large enough you could have the walking track in there. If the walking track is in there, it can subtract from the cost of the wellness center, and so forth. The operational costs, some of that could be absorbed by existing coaches' salaries that want to coach their teams anyway and have a heated place and so forth. So I know I only had 3 minutes and I don't only have time to run the idea up a flagpole, but I've got talking points and actually to back up on that claim, which it's surprising when you see that you can get a big metal building to support these kind of sports and so forth, and give the kids someplace that they can walk to after school. Because as soon as you take it across the tracks, then you have transportation and the whole thing falls apart in terms of actual use of the center. So I'm probably my 3 minutes are probably up. Or can I just?
I think that
1 minute,
she's
30
timing it,
seconds.
yeah, and it's 4 minutes that we give, so
4 minutes.
yeah,
4 minutes.
we're
Yeah.
generous in Livingston compared to most cities, I think.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So, let's see. I had a whole thing about the objective. First objective is to do the long term, which Grant assured me that there's a plan in place to get that levy up to FEMA standards. And once you do that, then the worry about having another building over in that area, it goes away. The nice thing about a field house with a dirt floor is that you can have a flood and it's not that big a deal. Right? So this is something that can be done, and I'd say relatively cheaply at $1.5 million, and it can be done quickly. This building can be delivered in 4 to 6 months, and it can be put together and finished in 4 to 6 months. What happens when you do that is you show the community that something is happening, and I'll write a check, and Andrew will write a check, and a lot of parents will write a check. Of course, Andrew's already written a big check for the wellness center, so we'll excuse you. But when parents see that this can happen, here comes the $50 and the $100, and then they're involved in this building and the activities that go on there. If the graduation from the high school needs to be moved inside, that's a great place to move it, right? I could go on and on, but I know it's been 4 minutes. And there are going to be other listening sessions and so forth. So that's my run it up.
Thanks, Joe, and you can submit your hard copies over here, and
Oh,
then
okay.
staff will make sure that the commissioners get
Sure.
copies, and also
There's a
staff
couple.
can keep
But you'll
copies.
just make copies of it.
Yep, thank you, Joe.
All right. You want to do a public comment?
Is there anyone else in the room that wants to share comment on this? Welcome, Jeannie. You can come on up and start with your name and address, please.
Okay.
Although you got that nice introduction, Jeannie. to you.
Yeah. Jeannie Tatum, 31 Yellowstone Trail, Livingston. As Joe was talking about the needs of our children, I agree totally. Transportation is a big issue. Safety of getting to any wellness center, wherever the location is important. And I really think we need to focus on those children that are, underserved, have difficulty at home. This is going to be a lifestyle change or a life-changing facility for them. I also want to say, as I'm a physical therapist, it will meet the needs of our older population as well. And I don't want us to miss that opportunity for health and wellness for that population as well that it will serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. Is there anyone else here in the room that would like to comment? Hi, James.
Hello.
So I'm going to speak on behalf of Elaine.
Thank you.
because
Can you just start with your name and address?
Elaine Kennedy, 108 South Ave,
And you're James Willich
James
on
Willett.
behalf of
spouse.
Elaine Kennedy.
She would just like to say that she thinks it's an excellent project. But she wants to stress to please keep the Civic Center and turn it into an event space and or a roller skating rink, please and thank you. And then I'll add to myself that I think it's a fantastic project and it will create generational health benefits to the city in the right spot, wherever that spot is. Thank you.
Thanks, James. We should put roller skating with pickleball, I guess, in this town, probably.
You're right.
I feel like that.
I got my 80-year-old dad on roller skates down at the Civic Center. He loved it.
That's amazing. I think that gets to Jeannie's point.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Andrew.
Our distinguished chair, I'll sign in. Andrew Field, Box 500 immigrant. My comment is sort of a follow-up on March 7th. So March 7th, I think we all saw overwhelming community support conceptually for the project. I don't recall, maybe I missed it, a single, now let's not do this. What there were some concerns expressed, understandably, about was, well, this location, it's near the river. It is or isn't in a floodplain. And why would you put a $25–30 million facility within a third of a mile, something like that, of a river? And I think those are very legitimate concerns to be raised as a means of potentially addressing them. WGM Group out of Bozeman did a study on this, and they started with both FEMA and Army Corps. And what I asked them to do was, look, in a 6-hour water event, 4 million or 8 million pounds of riprap got washed away. What if it was a 6-day event? And that's, I think, a very legitimate concern. And I said, why don't you just assume that the levee goes away? And they said, well, after they got into it, they said, turns out the 500-year floodplain, which is not what's generally required for building, the 500-year floodplain says that's what you're supposed to assume, is that the levee goes no higher than street level, meaning in effect, it provides, I think the phrase they used was no hydrological barrier, meaning it's gone. So then what? And they said you could expect roughly 2 to 3 feet of standing water during a 500-year flood event, which assumes the levee has breached and therefore creates no hydrological barrier. In this circumstance, the standard practice is typically to design structures for the flooding, for the shallow flooding that may occur, which could include elevating the building, raising the site several feet, as Sleeping Giant Middle School is, which was built way later than the high school. So you notice the old part of the high school is low, the newer part of the high school takes several steps up, and Sleeping Giant's even higher than that. And I didn't know any of this. I thought floodplain was the F word, and you could not absolutely build in a floodplain. And it turns out that's not true. Now, there's many other considerations, and I think city manager has done a great job of saying, here's these considerations and those considerations. But there was some comment in that meeting that said, you can't build at this site. And it turns out, according to the experts, and I know this is a data-driven commission, according to the experts, that is not correct. So I would like to, and I can send you a visual version of this, so you don't have to type it all up. I'd like to submit, it's just 3-page hydrological report from WGM Group in Bozeman into the record for your consideration respectfully.
Yeah, that'd be great. You can, if you can do that, Mr. Gage will make sure the commission gets it.
Thank you very much. And I'd like one other comment, which is, I thought the budget discussion was very well handled.
Oh, that was off topic. You have to take that.
You know,
No, I'm just joking. Thank you. Other comments from folks in the room before we go online? We're good? We're good. Okay, I'm gonna look online, folks online that want to give comment. Saw somebody bounce on the screen, but I don't know.
Dennis Glick.
Okay, let's start. Okay, we'll start with Dennis, because I thought I saw your name. Dennis, you go first, and then I'll go to Tim and then Patricia.
Okay.
So,
Dennis
Dennis, thank you, Dennis.
Glick, 411 South Yellowstone. I'm not really going to get into the weeds on location, although as some of you know, I have some pretty strong feelings. And having lived on South Yellowstone, a block from the river for the last 30 years, I have a hell of a lot of respect for it. And I don't think we can really predict what it's going to be doing in an era of climate change. But what I really wanted to comment on was just the process in the next month. That's a pretty quick turnaround to go from where we are now to actually identifying the recommended site. And I'm not saying that we can't do that. I like the fact that you're moving forward, but I'm really hoping that there's significant outreach to the public on this and that people are clearly aware that there's a short timeline and that there is a opportunity to comment. Quite honestly, I haven't heard very much from the non-governmental conservation community about this issue. Thank goodness that the enterprise has done some coverage, but hopefully, I guess the enterprise may be the best vehicle to elevate people's understanding of this. And I really do hope that the city is able to reach out and provide them with some materials. I think they've been doing a good job of covering local issues, but they need that information. So anyway, that's my major comment, that let's make sure that people are aware of what's going on, the timeline, the process for submitting comments. And then I guess I'm still a little unclear, once you get all these comments, how the final decision is made. And maybe you can explain that to me. But I also want to say that was a great presentation, and it's a real treat to watch the city commission in action. I haven't been involved as much as I used to be, but you guys are doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And after everybody gives comment, we'll come back to some of the questions or comments that we heard from the public. So hang around and we'll circle back to your points. Tim, you're next.
Hi, Tim Stevens, 315 North 3rd Street. And first of all, congratulations on the hard work and the due diligence that you've done in a short period of time to try and get your arms around this issue in a way that it hasn't been before. So thank you for that. And I really appreciated the poll that you did and the numbers that came in, and that was really encouraging. I guess I would echo, number one, echo the comments of Dennis Glick about the necessity to ramp up public outreach. And it is a short period of time, but you know, you're going to hear people who said, I never heard about this. And so the more we could do, and just, you know, there's a few things that can reach people that are fairly inexpensive, like paid digital ads, ads in Facebook, ads, you know, paid digital ads in the enterprise that are pretty affordable, paid ads in the enterprise, hard copy, which are a little bit less affordable. You know, mailings, I'm wondering if we can add something to the Public Works newsletter and or the city update that the city manager has started to send out. Maybe presentations for key constituencies like, you know, seniors or the school or, you know, different neighborhoods, maybe a show me tour, something like that. Just a few ideas. And again, I know you're short staffed on this, but I think really the we got to, there are time window here in which to engage people, and that's really important. In terms of process for you all to kind of make your decision, I mean, one suggestion I was going to have, and something that I use when I have a hard decision to make, is I wonder if you might think about like creating a matrix where on, a vertical column, you have the 4 locations that you have to consider. And then on a horizontal column, you have the different factors that are important to the city and to you all that you can sort of rank individually on a scale of 1 to 5. And I'm thinking of things just as brainstorming on a little break, like, proximity to the population you want to serve, equitable access for the population that's least able to get to this facility, the overall cost, essential functions, the space, the consistency with zoning regulations, infrastructure costs, funding opportunities, and I'm thinking specifically about the tax credit, proximity to other city services, including transportation, environmental factors, including carbon footprint and the need to drive for most people or not, access by foot. So the city that you all can create this matrix and then rank each location and each one of these categories on a scale of 1 to 5. And then you could come up with, well, this site got a 96, this site got a 56. That might be telling us something. And with decisions where I don't know what's the best location, honestly. But I think you've got 4 good ones here, and I hope you continue to pursue looking at each of these locations with equal effort. But I think just in order to help yourselves kind of identify the priorities and how you would sort of rate those out, and then have the public understand where you would put the priorities in terms of judging location, then that it's just a suggestion, but it's something that I've used before that maybe you can work on. So anyways, thanks again for the great process for moving this thing along. And I'm really impressed with what the city manager's done here, and look forward to continuing to engage in this conversation.
Thank you, Tim. Patricia, I saw your hand go up and then go down. Did you still want to give a comment?
I do, please.
Wonderful. It's your turn.
Okay. First of all, thank you for all the work you've gone into on this. I think it's pretty wonderful. I do question the kind of input you'll get. Okay. Because there's so many factors involved. For example, the one location at Sacagawea Park, once we'll give up Miles Park. That'll be goodbye Miles Park. And those of us who love it, the Swindlehurst family who donated it with the idea that it would be a park into perpetuity, instead of real estate. But also the effect on our growth policy. And then we do have Printing for Less, one of the donors here has sued the city. We will certainly lose that lawsuit because we took that position because of our growth policy, when suddenly we just go against our growth policy on the one location. There couldn't be in a worse location than that one it has nothing to do with the surrounding area. It's on an old garbage dump. Okay, but also Sacagawea Park is just an icon, as it is. And our Wednesday farmers market is now 4 times what it was. And you've got parking all the way to the high school on that farmers market. We have to keep that area as Sacagawea Park. And then the other 3 are pretty impressive locations. It isn't like that we have one location. We have these other locations that do not violate our growth policy, do not cost us $3 million just if we lose this lawsuit. There's a lot of hidden costs there. But those other 3 locations are pretty wonderful. And they will do the job for us. As you know, I was there when Eastside School, people were talking about tearing down Eastside School, and I put $11,000 into suing my own city so that we would have Eastside School, because people said, well, you have to tear down Eastside School because we're not using it and it's ugly and it needs work. Well, that's the argument that they're using on the Civic Center as well. And yet take a look at East Side School today. Those historic buildings have more than one use. That East Side School is no longer no longer a school. It's a wonderful asset to our community, and so will the Civic Center be for our community. So I don't want to lose Secretary Park. I don't want to lose our Civic Center. I don't want to lose our and traffic down to that part of town is absolutely insane. So we have, and the population is growing. We don't have a demographer with the city, but the population is growing north. So the utilization of that has to come with a projected demographics of this whole community as well. There's a lot of factors involved, and they all point to one of the three options that our city manager with his due diligence has come up with. I can't even tell you how important this is. This to me is like the Ellensburg Dam. It just, people said, oh, well, we should have it. It's a, damming Paradise Valley is going to be good. We'll have all this wonderful things from the Ellensburg Dam. It wasn't. And they didn't know what the implications of what they were doing. So I just commend the city on finding three really great locations. And you could save taxpayers money, and we don't even have a cost breakdown of the locations at this point. So the implications are financial, and we must not lose Secretary Park as a park. It was designed and made as a park. It needs to stay that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Who else online would like to give comment? Is there anybody else on Zoom that wants to give comment? All right, one more scan in the room, one more scan online, not seeing anybody. You already gave comment, Andrew. You only need to do it once, but you can email us. Thank you for understanding the decorum and process. All right, so public comment on the update on the Community Wellness Center project is closed. I'm gonna, if it works for the commission, I'll go back to some of the comments that were made for clarifying remarks before we move into a conversation. Does that work for you all? Okay. So someone was remarking on checks to the project, and I just want to be clear that if somebody wants to give checks to the project, the appropriate folks to reach out to would be the Four Ranges Community Foundation. That would be, I believe, Andrew Field and Chase Rose are folks that, and Michael McCormick are folks that can help facilitate that giving. So I just want to be clear, if people are looking to support it, that's the pathway, as opposed to those of us on the side of the room. Dennis was bringing up the enterprise, and I know people in the room can't see who's on the other side of the owl, but I want to ensure you that Sean is here from the enterprise, diligently taking notes, and he keeps an open line of communication with the city. So I am certain that, and also the city manager reaches out to him. So I'm certain that those conversations are forthcoming, and that we can expect that Sean and Mr. Gager will hopefully be in touch about any details for the process. Thank you for being here, Sean, also. There was a question about how the final decision is made that Dennis brought up. Mr. Gager, did you want to shed some light on? There's a question about how I guess maybe I'll couple these things together, because Dennis was asking about how the final decision is made, and then Tim was talking about one mechanism for making a decision with a matrix. So I just want to encourage folks that weren't at the Shane Center meeting that we actually went through a process of decision making with the commission, where we talked about benefits and challenges to the project, and we worked through that in a way that folks maybe haven't seen the commission do before. So I would expect when we move towards the wellness center location conversation, we might do something similar. And also I wanted to give Mr. Gager an opportunity to talk about what the commission might expect from a staff report on this decision, since a lot of the things that have been brought up by the public are things that I believe staff are already identifying as key parts of the project that staff and the commission should be considering before the commission votes. So do you want to like sort of share how the process goes for your branch of government and then what you would expect that to look like as it moves towards the legislative branch for us to make the decision?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I could, I might start with the end first, which
Please.
is to say that, fundamentally, the conversation that we are having here is about city facilities and the future of city facilities, and most specifically, where we're going to locate a new facility and what's going to be in that building. And so that very much is a policy decision of the city of Livingston. So that decision rightly sits with you folks at the city commission. And so as the city manager, it's my responsibility to provide you folks with a slate of options and corresponding analysis to inform that decision. And so that is the process that we started back in February, or excuse me, March, when we had the first meeting, and that will continue over the next month to gather that information and ensure that you folks have the data necessary to make an informed decision, because this is a facility that will exist for at least the next 50 years. Extensive outreach will be undertaken in the next month, and really it will start later this week. And there will be notes in the newsletter as Mr. Stevens suggested. We will certainly have presentations with different groups. I've actually had some large local employers ask that I come and speak to their employee groups, and those meetings will happen. But there will also be opportunities for the public to engage with the materials on their own time and at their own pace. And so the materials will be publicized on our website, and as it indicated, we'll have some boards at some certain public locations around town. So the goal really is to ensure that we can touch as many people as possible with these materials and ensure that they are aware of them. And when we do come back, we will, as staff, we will summarize the feedback that we have heard. And one of those forms of summary actually is intended to be a decision matrix, much as Mr. Stevens indicated. We've been working with the architecture team. They've worked on a number of other projects, and so we do have the basics of a matrix that touch upon the aspects that I talked about earlier, but also a number of others. And I think that Mr. Stevens pointed out a few that we don't have in our matrix, to my recollection, that will go back. And so that will be brought forward to you folks. And that was a little bit of what we started here tonight when we showed the demographic maps with the 2020 census data. That really, I guess, was really the dipping of the toe in the water, if we will, as far as the data analysis goes. So do look forward to that. And I think I've addressed the questions you had, but if there's something I missed specifically, happy to answer that as well.
Thanks. I think what I want to acknowledge for the public is I sense the trepidation that folks have, because we have not undertaken anything like this as a commission or government for a very long time or ever, where we've built a large infrastructure project with a foundation, funding the capital portion of the project. And so I just want to acknowledge that this is very big, and I understand that people are have a lot of thoughts and concerns that it be done well. And I want to acknowledge also, Mr. Gager, that the commission was very specific in what we were requesting from you. And it was, I think, in no uncertain terms, we wanted a very clear and deliberate process. And so I appreciate that that's what you're giving us. And also I appreciate that this decision-making for the location is actually being slowed down a little bit. I know it feels very quick to many people, but the reality is we're stretching this out over a course of a month rather than condensing it into one meeting and expecting hundreds of people to come and give comment. So I think this this sort of matches the intention of what the commission was asking for, which was an opportunity for the public to really weigh in an intentional way. Because we know that people in Livingston will show up because they always do. And it's nice if they don't feel rushed at a meeting that goes into the wee hours of the night. So thank you for that. I also want to acknowledge that we haven't had this experience with you yet as our city manager, where you've led through a large initiative on behalf of the commission for the community. And so this is new to a lot of people. And so it makes sense that they have questions. And I hope that they will bring their good ideas to you if they watch this video, excuse me, later. It's not a movie. They watch the YouTube video later and they have ideas on, maybe they want to invite you to their workplace, or maybe they have other ideas for outreach or comments that weren't included tonight. So I just want to, I guess, lay that all out there, that it's a big project and it's a big deal. And we can all be really excited that this is slow and intentional, I think. That's all I have to say about those comments. Commissioners, did I miss anything based on the public comment?
No.
Okay. Is there anything that you all want to add to what I said? And I'm looking to Commissioner Schwartz too. Okay. What would you like from us right now in terms of feedback?
Well, if, you folks have any suggestions on process or specific groups to reach out to, I would appreciate that. If there are anything specifically that you would like us to evaluate over the coming weeks and include in the packet, if you have those ideas now, I would take them, but recognizing that, this is a larger and more complex issue, feel free to email me over the coming days, any thoughts you have, information needs. We will try to bring you as much information as we think is useful without overwhelming the process. And I, to the process, I will say that I am appreciative of people's concerns about the pace, but somewhat of the reality that we find ourselves in with some of the grants and some of the deadlines that have been established. And so I'm working within that context to provide a process that, brings us to a decision while also incorporating as much public input as possible.
I'm just wondering how you feel your timeline's going. I mean, I know that the idea of the July 11th meeting has been brought up, so I'm just curious as to your thinking on that, and if you feel like we're going to need that additional meeting, or is that something you need to think about and get back to us? I mean,
no, it's an excellent question. At this point, I don't foresee the need for a special meeting before July 18th to discuss this topic. I think that time would be better served gathering public input. I would say, potentially we may consider a special meeting after the 18th with, still within the month of July, recognizing that the county has their process to work through, but they are aware of the process and we're fitting on their calendar. So, if we're unable to button things up on the 18th, we might take a special meeting after that. But other than that, I think the process, when it's, fully unveiled to the public, I'm hopeful that folks will find ample opportunity to participate.
Yeah, Commissioner Lyons.
I think there was a prompt to provide additional considerations to bring to the July 18th meeting. One that might obviously come to my mind is traffic impacts of potential sites, namely, with a particular focus on crossings. That's it. I actually thought all of the considerations that Tim suggested in his public comment were really great. So I don't know if those were clocked, but they were really good and relatively comprehensive. And the one that was missing for me was the traffic impacts. And thank you.
Thanks.
Ooh,
Do you have anything you want to add?
complicated.
Oh, yeah,
always.
you always can get it in one word, Mel.
I think this is excellent to have this early discussion and see where
Mhm.
so many different directions that this can take, so. Yeah, but you gotta start somewhere, and we appreciate the input of people that are here, so. That's very important.
Mhm.
Commissioner Schwartz, do you want to add anything?
I got a hunch of no.
There's a no? Okay. All right, then I'll go. I have a few things. My first request is when you do the maps, can you make sure that the second location that you've identified as M Street Park has the same shading as the other? Just so it's easy for the public to follow. Also, just to note that many folks in the community call it M Street Park, but many also call it the Katie Bonnell Park, and so, just noting that name is also very significant and important to many people in the community, so maybe using both or maybe deferring to the Katie Bonnell Park name, or at least including that name. One thing I'm interested in for this analysis would be thinking about the current uses of our civic center and making sure that we don't lose those current uses in a new facility. So an example would be very affordable roller skating. So any new facility, you know, making sure that we still have, wherever that is in our community in the city of Livingston, that we still offer these super affordable options to the community. That's one thing that I've heard already from people is, does a new facility mean they can't pay $2 or $5 to do the thing anymore? Or in roller skating generally seems to be a thing, as someone mentioned, that it's a little bit like the unspoken pickleball maybe of Livingston, that people don't want to lose that. Also the current use of the civic center, one of them is, it's the emergency location. It's been identified. So I would, and I know somebody did say this in public comment, and also it's true that the number one risk that we're at is flooding in our community. So I don't want to lose those aspects of a project because we still need a place to move people to if their lives and their homes are in danger. That's like really important for health and safety. And then the other thing is the impacts to the potential sites. So I think Patricia brought this up in the sense of the area around Miles Park, like, would there be an impact to current use of that land? Like she brought up the farmer's market, but I'm also thinking, somebody brought up, I think, the M Street Park or the Katie Bonnell Park, like would a potential wellness center at that site impact the site as we know it today? So that kind of consideration, I think, could be nice to anticipate what public might be thinking. And finally, last but not least, I know that Commissioner Friedman always wants to do site visits before we make land use decisions. So maybe sometime in the next month, if there was an opportunity for commissioners to get time with staff, so we could see in real time what the proposal is. Does that sound like something you've been asking for? Okay.
Site visit, yeah.
Yeah.
Go look
Okay.
at it, yeah.
So site visits definitely for commissioners, whatever that looks like, if you could help facilitate that.
Absolutely.
I think that's all the things on my list for now. Sounds like all
Gotta
five,
start somewhere, and we gotta off to
yeah,
a lot of things to think about.
yeah. Anything else? Commissioner Schwartz, do you have anything you'd add to the list at this point? Okay. All right, do you need anything else from us on this agenda item?
No, I appreciate the feedback. We've done a little bit of research here, and so I would offer, in response to your question related to this, the size of the current civic center. It looks like basically the functional areas that the public interacts with are about 8,000 square feet. we have some park crew space in the back where we store some equipment. And we've also got the basement areas that are largely unused. So the general facility that the public interacts with is about 8,000 square feet.
So that's like the gymnasium, the front lobby, that little upstairs area, and then like the offices off to the side
In the
Yep.
kitchen.
Exactly.
and the kitchen. Okay, great. Thank you.
Those
That's,
storage rooms, all of that. Yeah.
thank you. That's very helpful. Okay. That was fast. Thanks.
So I thank staff for that. So thank you.
Thanks, staff. Anything, if you don't need anything else, I guess we're done with that for now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So next on our list is city manager comments.
Don't.
This is the good stuff. We're off script. This is what you don't wanna, this is what you don't wanna miss.
In recognition of the late hour, I'll keep my comments brief, but I will say that, the commissioners, not sure how many of you had the opportunity to venture across the tracks through the underpass, but the mural that we all, worked with, local art teacher Kelsey Lance and her students to work on, was completed over the weekend, and the anti-graffiti, paint has been applied. So I'd encourage everyone to go check it out. And after dark, there are some glow in the dark elements that hopefully folks will appreciate. So happy to report that, and thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Next up is Commissioner Lyons.
I would just like to commend City Manager Gager on, and Mrs. Betteroff on the successful presentation of the budget. I think it went really well, super easy to understand. And like Chair Need said, I really did appreciate kind of the narrative description of what the changes were to those sections. It made it really, you know, we didn't have to go and figure that out ourselves, and that was really helpful. And also just recognize that it took a massive amount of work to get to this binder. I appreciate it also in the process of having that meeting with us to talk about what our priorities were, and connecting material changes to the budget to those priorities was just, that's the way that it should be done, and really appreciate that. So job well done, and thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Commissioner Schwartz. It's time for your.
Yeah, I'll echo exactly what Tori said. Nice job. A lot of work, a lot of information provided tonight, and very pleased with the way things are moving forward. So I'll keep short, and I yield.
Thank you. Commissioner Friedman.
Wow, a lot to think about. Since it's our first wellness center. But I appreciate the general public, you know, as much information as you can get, it gives you some direction. There's a need for something, and what's it look like, and so putting it together, the early stages is critical. And more ideas you get, the better are you, and you know, it's hard to think of all of them, so quite a project for us, but I think it's needed and it's well worthwhile. And we got to start somewhere, and this is a pretty good start. I yield.
Vice Chair Keel.
Wow, I think everyone has said it all this evening, so I agree with my fellow commissioners. Thank you, Mr. Gager, for the budget. Was a lot more digestible than we've seen in the past. And so I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate the work that we did prior for you to listen to our thoughts and wants and incorporate those. So thank you very much. Lots of exciting things coming down the pike. I would just say, let us know how we can help in this next month as we move through some of these things, and let us know where we need to show up so that we can participate and show up as needed to get the job done that we're headed towards.